Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Great comments. Thanks for taking the red eye.
I was going to say it's a pleasure, but, well, it was the red eye.
And I'm really impressed that you're not asleep.
I'm not. Okay, good.
So I clearly remember the call that I got from the NSA several years ago asking if we would lead the process of creating a curriculum in character and ethics for cyber programs for all of the NSA schools to make it available to them. Wouldn't be mandatory, it'd be voluntary. And it was a pretty surreal call, honestly. It was, I felt honored and privileged, and because the team at the college had really gotten the program to a place where that was made possible. There are about 400 colleges in American higher education that are designated as centers of academic excellence. And these 400 schools are the leading schools on the front line academically and professionally in terms of filling the workforce delta. There are about 600,000 unfilled jobs in cybersecurity today in the United States, about 23,000 unfilled jobs in cyber here just in the state of North Carolina. Those numbers are growing. They estimate by 2025 that number domestically will be over 1 million. 3.5 million estimated globally by 2025. And so the bad guys are ahead of the good guys. And that distance is actually growing. And along the way, that request for a curriculum became a book. And so, Ed, you and I spent an awful lot of time together in 2022.
We sure did.
Working on the book. Our draft is entitled The Code of Honor. We're currently shopping it with publishers now. We have a literary agent who's put it out to about 36 prospective publishers, and we're beginning to get some really interesting comments back. The head of Stanford University Press said she was really, really interested in it, but it wasn't quite what they were looking for, but called it an important and vital work for the future. And so we're getting some interesting comments so far, but it's early. And we're going to show you the oath and walk through it in just a moment, but I'm going to toss you like the softball first. What was it like for you working on this book in 22?
Well, let me start out by saying it was a delight, but it was a fair amount of work. So imagine, if you will, you have an office in New Jersey, and your good friend, Dr. Paul Maurer, suggests that he travels extensively, every couple of weeks for an entire year, so that you, little hacker that you are, can wrestle on deep principles and ideas of cyber ethics with a PhD in poli-sci and a master's of divinity. Go. Every other week for a year. Now, to some of you, this sounds delightful. Actually, it was great fun. We did work hard on the book, and I'm proud of the shape that it's taken. But Paul worked tirelessly on this, and he did all the travel. I think I came down to Montreat once, and Paul came up. I didn't count how many times. But it was a delight to have you in the office. A couple of times, Paul actually met with my team as well. We went out to some dinners and wrestled. And in fact, I was joking with Paul earlier today. I felt like Jacob and Esau wrestling inside the womb. I recalled that several times as I was wrestling with Paul over some of these really difficult issues. I mean, some ethical issues are pretty straightforward, but there are some that are just tough, and we were debating back and forth. I was trying to bring in the firepower of my technical team to help, but Paul held his own, and anyway, I'm delighted with the results. I mean, steel sharpens steel, right? We know that, and I think the book is better for that wrestling that we did.
Yeah, thank you. If you would put the oath up, the full oath.
There we go.
So what's at the centerpiece of this book is this oath. It's a cybersecurity oath. Nothing like this exists in the industry today. And we aspire for this to be a version, a cybersecurity version of something like the Hippocratic Oath or the Geneva Conventions. As we've studied history over the last 2,000 years, the large engagements of life in the civilized part of the world have ethical guardrails. So the Hippocratic Oath, which is 2,000 years old, over 2,000 years old, has guided medicine imperfectly and voluntarily for 2 millennia. And it has been largely understood in civilized countries as a guardrail, a guideline, a way to think about the boundaries of how medicine is carried out. Likewise, the Geneva Conventions, which were developed after World War II, came from a long lineage of what's called just war theory. Just war theory goes back also 2 millennia, and it has guided civilized countries in warfare, offense and defense. There are rules of engagement in warfare. It is voluntary, it is imperfect, but it has provided guardrails. Today, there are no guardrails in cybersecurity that are widely accepted anywhere. And so this would have to be voluntary, it will be imperfect, and it has to spread organically. We can't make this the standard, it has to become the standard. And so if it becomes a standard, it becomes a standard, but we have absolutely no control over that. And so what we're going to do over the next few minutes is just unpack these 8 planks of the oath, starting with the first one on people. The first plank reads, I will treat all people with value and dignity. So Ed, this oath was built, and we played with the order. We reordered these. We had 12 at one time, we contracted, we expanded, and we changed the order, and we put this one at the beginning because the oath is built around the concept of human value and dignity. How do you think about the crossroads between ethics and cybersecurity and the importance of recognizing the inherent value of human beings in that process?
I think everything flows from it. I mean, it's important and very purposeful that this is our first one, to recognize the value and dignity of people. With the advancement of technology, especially things like AI, some people are looking at it and saying, are people really that important anymore? But we feel very strongly, Paul and I, that technology is designed to serve people, and it should enhance and make our lives better. And to run it ethically, it should keep that in mind, the dignity inherent in people. I don't see how you could have cybersecurity be meaningfully secure and of high character and ethical without taking that into account, the value and dignity of people right out of the gate. I think it's so important, and also for cybersecurity practitioners to recognize that not only in the technology they build, but also in their professional interactions. This industry, the cybersecurity industry, there's a lot of turmoil going on. There's a lot of social change, as is in the larger world, but we really see it in this space. There's a lot of fights. There's a lot of nasty stuff going on there. But fundamentally, if we can get people to respect each other, have dignity, and uplift, and I hope our code will help with that at least some.
So one of the points we make in that first chapter is it's man over machine, humans over technology.
Right.
Humans create technology, not the other way around. Why was it so important for us to do that?
Because sometimes, look, as a system administrator or cybersecurity professional, sometimes it does feel, maybe even for you, that you're serving your computer. Does it ever feel like that? It pops up a little message on the screen, your computer's telling you what to do. It's like, who's running the show here? Is it me or the computer? We wanted to say, no, fundamentally it should be the people running the show and not the computers. Yes, the computers can help us to run things, but it's got to be the people first.
And AI is blurring the lines, and you've got these questions of sentience, whether a computer is actually a living organism.
Yeah, there's something called the Turing test. I don't know if you've heard of that, named after Alan Turing. And the idea that Turing had back in the 1940s was if you wanted to tell if a computer was thinking, imagine if you had something in another room. It might be a computer, it might be a human, and you're interacting with it via a teletype, a teleterminal back in the day. And the Turing test means if the person sitting at that desk interacting with the entity on the other side of the wall there cannot tell whether it's a human or a machine, then, well, if it is a machine, it passes the Turing test. ChatGPT passes the Turing test, especially the latest version of it. Version 4 came out a couple months ago. This is a watershed event. We've been waiting for this for 60 plus years, and the Turing test has now been passed. That doesn't mean it's sentient. It doesn't mean it's ready to take over the world or anything like that, but now we have machines that can reasonably fool humans into thinking that it's a human.
Number 2, I will treat all people I will seek the best interests of others, excuse me. I will seek number 2, I will seek the best interests of others. Elaborate on the meaning and purpose of what you have for your work in the industry. And what would be an example of a scenario where your leadership style has been shaped by the why?
Sure. So we do talk in the book about the why. Why do you do what you do? And we ask our readers to think about what motivates them, what inspires them, and why do they put in so much effort in their profession. And for me, my why is to help make the world a safer, more secure place. That's why I do what I do. And to do so at a reasonable scale, I need to, well, seek the best interests of others, the world at large, but also the people immediately around me. And I get joy out of this too. And I hope people reading our book will see how they can derive joy from seeking the best interests of others. And in a leadership capacity, the very foundation of my company, CounterHack, our mission is this. You cited the vision of Montreat earlier. The mission of CounterHack is we exist to do very, very high quality cybersecurity work. That's the first pillar there. With people we love. And by people we love, we mean our customers and our team members, the team members themselves, to make the world a more safe, secure place. So in each one of those pillars, you're seeing that we're trying to reach out to the best interests and support other people in uplifting them in making the world safer and more secure. So that's just built into the DNA of what I'm trying to do with my company. We're also doing that in the training business, also to build people up, to build their skills. And I hope the cybersecurity oath will further that.
Number 3, I will strive to recognize, take ownership, and appropriately communicate my mistakes and exercise patience toward others who make errors. So we approach this concept from a long-standing ethical concept that humans are flawed.
Yes.
Inherently.
We talked about that a lot when we were meeting in New Jersey.
And it's an inherent part of not just human nature, but it's an inherent part of work.
Yeah.
And how people perform or don't perform their work every day. So you've been at this for decades. What is your advice on how to mitigate the mistakes that are inevitable and to foster the relationships within a cyber team?
It's by recognizing your mistakes and fessing up to them. I mean, I make mistakes all the time, daily. Some of them are small, some of them are big. And reflecting on those, one of the things Paul and I talked about in these meetings in New Jersey is at the end of the day, or certainly by the following morning, I reflect on the previous day and to think, what did I screw up today? And what do I need to do to address that? I mean, I'm very thankful to have made it through a day, but at the same time, what did I say that was perhaps inelegant or hurtful? What did I do that I should have done differently? And how can I address it? And one of the biggest things is just confessing those errors to people and not hiding them. I was at a dinner 2 nights ago in San Francisco. It was called the RSA Scholars Dinner, RSA Conference Scholars Dinner, where they invite 50 students, college students, usually juniors, seniors, and people in master's programs from around the country, and they meet with industry practitioners. And you'll have 2 industry practitioners sitting at a table with 6 students, and our job is to talk with them about the industry. And one of the students, very wisely, said, hey, tell me about some mistakes you've made in your work so that I don't make those mistakes. And I said, well, there was one I just made last year at the RSA conference. I was introducing a panel of experts, and for one of the people on the panel, it was her second time on the panel. And I did something I think it was a little inelegant. I announced, this was her second year on the panel, I announced that the previous year she was the very best. I thought I was doing the right thing, that she was the very best the previous year. And then I said, as I'm introducing her to 28,000 people, I can't wait to see what you're going to do right now for all of us. And she got up, and can you imagine what I did to her? So 2 nights ago, I confessed to the students, say, I screwed that up, and she'll be on the panel the 3rd time tomorrow, and I'm not going to do that again. So I've learned myself, you have to be very careful and sensitive when you're introducing somebody and not to put too much pressure on them. Thank you for your kind introduction today, Paul, without too much pressure. And I'm hoping to share those lessons learned with other people. So admitting your errors, sharing those lessons, there's a certain real humility you need to bring to this task.
And that really is the core. It's humility. It's the willingness to realize it's a level playing field and that we're all flawed. We all make mistakes. But we have to own our own, and that's really hard for people to do.
It is, especially in like the cybersecurity field, because there's a certain braggadocio that goes into that. When you control computers a lot, it makes you feel like you can control everything, and you can't. The other half of this is really important, and that is exercising patience with others that make mistakes, because it happens too. So the two sides of this coin go hand in hand. I mean, they're vital. Admitting your own mistakes and taking ownership, and then understanding, accepting, and perhaps coaching when you see others making mistakes.
Number 4, I will be honest and trustworthy and above reproach in my actions and my communications. So as you look back at your decades-long career and milestones in your life, not just work-wise, what for you are the personal qualities, personal talents, and other factors that help you to advance your career?
I think a lot about how important it is to live your life in a way that you could face, say, your mom or face your spouse and say, yes, this is what I've done. If there's stuff that you've done that you can't say that you can't be public about, that's a sign that you're going down the wrong path. Maybe it's in a business dealing. Maybe you've done something that's against a contract. One of the big things in our industry is non-disclosure agreements. Increasingly, we are seeing people use ChatGPT to do research, to write reports, and I've cautioned some people in this business, what are you leaking to ChatGPT as it helps you do your work? Are you inherently violating your own non-disclosure agreement? You need to kind of keep a check and balance on yourself as you go about your day, and these non-disclosure agreements and other contractual obligations you have are vital. You don't want to hide that. We had a thing that came up a couple weeks ago. A customer required a background check of everybody that's on my team working on their project. Some of the people on my team have background checks, some other people do not. So we embarked on getting a background check for this one person. And unfortunately, the background check didn't finish in time for him to start on the project. So here you go, an ethical dilemma. Do you just have him start? I mean, he's a good person. The background check will finish in 2 or 3 days, right? I said, no, we have to tell the customer the background check didn't finish. Are you okay with us having him start on the project, or should we substitute personnel? And the customer said, I'm not comfortable with having him without the background check being done, so you got to do some substitutions here. So we had to juggle the whole schedule around. But I was thinking through this very thing. I will be honest and trustworthy and above reproach in my actions. And you face these dilemmas every single day. So background check hasn't finished. We got to start a project. How can we shuffle things around? But we have to tell the customer exactly what we're doing and get their input so they can make the decision.
So we have some Montreat College students here. Some of them are cyber majors. We have some alumni in the room who are cyber graduates. They're working in the cyber profession. What would you say to them is the secret sauce, the secret of success for them moving forward?
Be open and honest and trustworthy. Admit your mistakes. I mean, try to learn from the code. We're actually, as you see, we're getting deeper and deeper as we go through each one of these things, and apply it in your life. I was talking with those RSA conference scholars the other day, and I gave them a bit of advice that I got from one of my early mentors in my career. I worked for the Bell system, for Bellcore. It was part of Bell Labs that worked with the baby bells, and there was a guy there named Avi Rubin. And Avi was one of their researchers, brilliant person, and he advised me, I was 1 or 2 years into my career, he said, your personal brand means so much to you. Think about that, and you want your brand to be associated inherently when people think of you with quality work, honesty, openness, integrity. And he told me, he said, this is serious, Ed, really serious. I want you to think about that. And I think about it all the time, that this guy, Avi Rubin, said to me, hey, don't lose track of this. And here we are 30 years later, and I think about Avi and what he told me and how valuable it was in my career.
So we're going to pick up the pace here. We're kind of going to go to lightning round number 5. I will not be a lone wolf, but will instead work collaboratively with my peers and superiors. What's the temptation of isolation?
So you can move faster. right? If I got to collaborate with this person or that person, it'll just take more time. Also, I think arrogance can come to the fore. I can get this done. I know how to do this, right? I'll just get it done. And then you cut corners, or you make a mistake, or you get yourself backed into a corner. You need to have collaborators and work with them. And my favorite part of this chapter is the analysis we have, the discussion we have about mentors in it, and the importance of getting a good mentor in life. We put some characteristics of good mentors. We talk about how to reach out to mentors. For the young people in this room, identify one or more mentors in your life that you can work with. It is an invaluable thing. Thank your mentor and do lean on them. And then for those who are maybe a little older in this room, mentor people. Find people that you can mentor and share what you've learned in your career with them. And that's a call that comes out in our book, and I bring it before you. Either seek a mentor or be a mentor.
Number 6, I will endeavor to exercise patience, wisdom, and self-control in all situations. So this is calm under fire, because there's a lot of fire.
Yeah, there is. And this one's a tough one for some people. I do think there's some, there's nature versus nurture in this. So there is some nature here. Some people get worked up more quickly than others. I think I'm one of them. And others just have a calm demeanor about them. Hey, that's great. We all need, though, to exercise this patience and wisdom and self-control. So practice. Understand those kinds of circumstances that do get you worked up, and then practice going slowly, or breathing carefully or deliberately, or diffusing your mind of the anxieties that come with these high-pressure, high-fire environments. So it's practice, practice, practice. Recognize this is important. See yourself as you get to that edge, and then back off of it.
So you don't think that composure, either you have it or you don't. You can learn and develop composure.
You can. Some people do inherently have it.
Yeah.
But those that don't, it's a muscle that as you work it out, it builds. And I've seen this in my friends. Also, sometimes add 5 or 10 years to your age and you'll find it naturally growing. But it is something that you can definitely work on and should.
Number 7, I will not steal and will do everything within my power to prevent theft in all its forms. So thievery is at the heart of the cybersecurity problem.
Yeah.
So why is this important for a cyber professional?
So it can be very easy to accidentally fall into theft. We cite an example in the book that I actually think we got from some discussions with the Montreat faculty. They were talking about some students and such that they had who had developed some code, some software. They had done that for one employer. And then they moved on to a different employer. But there was the code that they developed while they were working for the first employer. Now, the nature of data is you can make copies of it, and it doesn't feel like you're stealing because they still have the code. And now I have the code, and I give it to my new employer, or I use it in my new job. You have stolen intellectual property there. It might not feel like it, but you really have. You need to respect intellectual property. Just the fact that it can be copied so easily doesn't mean that it's not theft. So you can kind of easily lapse into this, and you have to, again, have those hedges of protection around you and think through the ownership of intellectual property. Now, you could redevelop that code at the new employer. That's fine, but you can't just copy the code over. And that kind of thing comes up a lot in this industry.
And finally, number 8, I will protect and respect the privacy of others. We wrestled over this one.
We did. This was some wrestle action, yes.
And you were the one that said we need privacy. And
I pushed hard.
And I was really uncertain about this.
Yeah.
And you won the arm wrestling match.
Yes. There are others that I lost, we should point out.
No, we shouldn't.
But this one I won, so I'm going to take my victory on this one.
So why is this important to have in the code?
With great power comes great responsibility. And cybersecurity professionals have access to all kinds of things. A lot of data. You hear a discussion today about the importance of end-to-end encryption for various chat programs or things that you have. A lot of times there's not end-to-end encryption. I was just reading an article earlier today. So end-to-end encryption means when Paul composes the message and sends it to me, it's encrypted the entire path. That's actually rare. Most of the time he'll compose a message. It might be encrypted for the first hop. It gets to maybe the server. It's unencrypted there. We can do some analysis, some filtering. It gets forwarded to another system, maybe encrypted for a while. At every place that it's not encrypted, that data is subject to analysis, inspection, a violation of your privacy. And I do think that it's a fundamental human rights issue. The dignity of humanity is dependent on your having privacy. Privacy about what's happening in your family, privacy about medical conditions, privacy about, well, other things that you might do in your life. And I'm really happy with the treatment that got in the book. So thank you for acceding to that. And I did try to convince Paul on some other issues, but he prevailed on those. So they're not in this, which actually shortens the duration of this talk, I suppose.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
A final word for our friends.
I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity ethics are a very lacking thing in my industry, and I feel bad about it. I've been doing cybersecurity work for about 27 years, and trying to do things from an ethical perspective and trying to see where I can help out on that. But it wasn't until a couple years ago, because of this gentleman here, Dr. Maurer, and through Montreat, said, hey, we really need to focus on this. There are little piece parts of ethics in this industry. It's not altogether unheard of. You'll see various certifications will have some ethical principles, but it's only for people who have those certifications. What we're proposing here is, hey, here's a fairly simple framework that can really help boost the ethical principles, the character of this industry. I do hope it takes effect. Paul has worked with several other people on the Montreat Technical Advisory Board about how can we reach out to chief information security officers, other industry luminaries to say, hey, will you take this pledge? And we've gotten some very good feedback and also buy-in from those industry thought leaders. We've tried to kind of seed the environment with, hey, do you find these things good? Now, also, one other point, final point. When you look at these, you might say, what does that have to do with cybersecurity specifically? If you look at every one of those points that we have, well, you can't see them right now, but they're there. Yep. If you look at every one of those points, you might say, that's not cyber-specific, that's just good ethics. Shouldn't this just be cyber-specific? I've heard this from some of our people giving us input. And I actually think that's a strength of this, that this can apply to various walks of life, right? But of course it applies and is underscored in the cybersecurity world. So I think it's a strength that these are general principles, and in the book we tell how to apply it specifically to cybersecurity.
Please join me in thanking Ed Scotus.
Thank you, my friend.